Hello, and welcome back to my book channel. I am coming at you with my October reading wrap-up. Now, I know this is being posted in the second full week of November, and you're saying, hey Danielle, October's been gone for a while. Yes, however, I live in the United States, and so a certain thing happened last week, the election, that really just threw me for a loop. I was planning to record this around the election time because I had family in town. I had posted in my community page that I had family in town, and so I didn't post normal content for a week, and then I was planning to record and post my wrap up, but I just couldn't. And just a PSA on that at the end, so stick around. But anyways, I'm gonna jump in to my October reading wrap up, and I'm going to do this a little bit different than I did for September because it was just kind of a reread month. This wasn't a super heavy month for books that weren't ARCs. I actually read quite a bit of ARCs this month. Now I did talk about several of those already in my ARC review talking head, so I'm going to link that in the cards and in the bottom, just so if you want to check that out. I'll do some more in-depth reviews, or I have some more in-depth reviews on those videos already, so you can go ahead and find that video if you want to, or save it for later, I don't know. But I'm going to jump in. So I'm actually going to kick us off with the ARCs that I've already kind of reviewed, just so I can get them knocked out with the books that I read in October. I read a total of 10 books, which was an average month for me. I'm going to kick it off with How to Help a Hungry Werewolf by Charlotte Stein. Wasn't my fave. I gave this 2.5 stars. You can see my full review in my other video. Second was No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lally. Fantastic, 5 stars. Loved it. Go pre-order it. It comes out in January, I believe. And then Out of the Woods by Hannah Boden Young. It also comes out in January. Another 5 stars. Love, 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 love. So good. I already reviewed those 3 books. So, like I said, if you want to check those out, the video is linked. I go more in depth into why I rated those the way I did. Now, in terms of rereads, in September I read Twilight, and I got to post a fun little video that was just for funsies about just the comparison between the book and the movie, and I can also link that for you because it was just a fun time. I love the Twilight saga. It's problematic, I know that, but I love it. And I think there's just a nostalgia aspect to it. So in October, I read the rest of the series, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn, and Midnight Sun. Now, the order in which I read them was a little funny because I had them at the library. I was getting them from the library, so I was kind of waiting. So I read Twilight, and then I skipped to Eclipse because I just wasn't in the mood to deal with the sadness. And then I read Breaking Dawn. And then I read Midnight Sun, and then from there I did New Moon, because then it was it was kind of chronological with Midnight Sun and New Moon, but since Midnight Sun is the partner book to Twilight, so it was a fun experience. It was weird ending with New Moon and then being and time for Eclipse, but I didn't then reread that again because that was a little insane. So that was my rereads, which was a grand time. I did have one nonfiction book this month. I've previously stated that I will not really be reviewing nonfiction books, and I think I am going back on that because we're allowed to change our opinions and change our stances, and I might change it again in the future, but this will go along with my PSA at the end. But I want to speak about nonfiction books because they deserve every credit also for its various reasons. So, the one nonfiction book that I did get to this past month was How to Keep Housefly Drowning by Casey Davis. She has been a kind of TikTok blow-up phenomenon. She's someone who, I'm sure if you are in the ADHD sphere, you might not know her name, but you've probably seen a video or 2 of hers. Now, I've had this book for a while, and then I actually ended up getting it on audio through Spotify audiobooks. There was a deal where I could get a free month of listening to audiobooks, so I did that. And I had some other books that I didn't finish on there, but I listened to that because as a working new mom who is not diagnosed with ADHD but definitely has some neurodivergency, I am diagnosed with APD, TPA, which I am medicated for, which I'm so thankful for. It's literally saved my life. Anyways, but there are just some executive dysfunction things that I struggle with, and it was one big permission slip. There wasn't everything in it that I was oh, this immediately applies to me. But if anything, it just helped frame some things differently in my brain. And so highly recommend that. That was a really enjoyable nonfiction read. Now, moving on to the next section, I restarted the Legendborn Cycle in October. I got to read Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and I have read that before actually, but it was so good to just go back. It is set in North Carolina, which is the state that I reside in, at Chapel Hill, where I've been to the campus a lot through, I was in Girl Scouts as a kid, and we had different workshops and events we would go to there, and so I love Chapel Hill's campus, and so it was just really interesting to have something set in an area that I'm very familiar with and talks about history in a fiction way that is so nuanced and so challenging and doesn't shy away from the really hard truths. And as a white woman, these are things that I can't speak to the experience on. And although fiction, I think it does give a great perspective to the Black experience, especially the Black woman experience. And so if you are a woman of color or a Black woman of color who has read this, I would love to hear your thoughts. I've heard some different videos and takes on it, that it is a beloved book, and for good reason. And if you are someone who is white or a non-Black woman, I would recommend it. Check it out. Understand the experience, especially in a southern state. So highly recommend. Now, Bloodmarked. Moving on to that. So I did DNF it. But wait. I have this issue where when I know something isn't finished, I don't like to finish it because I don't want a cliffhanger. I loved Bloodmark. I started it. I got to about 70% through, and I just found myself not wanting to pick it up because I knew it was going to end. So I do know that Oathbound, the third in the cycle, is coming out in March of 2025. So I will be reading it again, and I will pick it back up. I might not restart the whole series because I feel like Legendborn is fresh enough that I could just pick up Bloodmark, but I probably will reread the part of Bloodmark that I have already read before going into Oathbound. I'm really excited for it. Everything that I've read so far, I'm just amped, and I knew that I would just be in a slump if I finish it, so I did DNF Bloodmarked, but it's more of a try again. I wouldn't call it a full DNF. So that was my try again for the month. Okay, and my last book I'm going to chat about from my October reading wrap-up is also an ARC, but it was not included in my previous ARC video because it's a new ARC, and it is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Piercing. My hope is that I actually have this up so that you can order the book. It comes out the 12th of November, which is a Tuesday, and it is her debut adult fantasy. She wrote The Remnant Chronicles and The Dance of Thieves duology, and this is in a completely separate world with adult cast. I did give this 5 stars. I'm just going to read you the description of it. After losing both their parents, Bristol Keats and her sister struggle to stay afloat in their small, quaint town of Bowes Keep. When Bristol begins to receive letters from an aunt she's never heard of who promises she can help, she reluctantly agrees to meet and discovers that everything she thought she knew about her family is a lie. Even her father might still be alive, not killed, but kidnapped by terrifying creatures to a whole other realm, the one he is from. Desperate to save her father and find the truth, Bristol journeys to a land of gods and fae and monsters, pulled into a dangerous world of magic and intrigue. She makes a deadly bargain with the fae leader, Tyen. But what she doesn't know is that he's the one who drove her parents to live a life on the run, and he is just as determined as she is to find her father, dead or alive. So that's the book description. I knew I was going to want to read this regardless because of just my love for her other books. I really recommend those books if you're into fantasy that is not like a KOTAR adjacent. The world building is really great. She has very intricate plots that slowly reveal themselves, and she's great at yearning, I think. Now, it's not like Pride and Prejudice slow yearning, but it's slow compared to a lot of stuff. So, anyways, that's all I'm going to really say about that because I don't want to tread into spoiler territory. I just think she has a great approach of characters and messy characters and people who have reasons for things that you might not fully agree with, but you can understand. I really appreciate that. I actually got to get the audio arc for this, which was such a joy. I thought it was really well done, produced. So love that. As well as I just enjoy her writing style quite a bit. However, I think that the publishing industry has done a disservice to all of us by not making new adult a real thing. I would not really put this as adult, but I wouldn't put it as YA. It's kind of like when people say a Kotar is YA, and I'm like, what are you smoking? That's not YA. I don't see that as YA. I think the themes are too mature, but they are not as mature as a lot of adult fantasies. And I think that is what I struggled with the most here. I did not remove any stars from that because that's not really a Pearson problem. That is a traditional publishing problem. But I really do think that this leans more young because like the female main character, Bristol, is younger. She's not a child, but she's younger. And it's hard, especially like I'm in my late 20s and there are certain things that I'm like, why is she doing that? And I'm like, well, if you were her age, you might be thinking the same thing. So that I struggled with. And I will say, it ends on a very interesting cliffhanger. If you know, you know. I didn't realize where I was in the book. And I was like going about my day. And I remember being in the kitchen, refilling my water bottle, and being like, when I heard the like, thank you for listening end credit thing that audiobooks have, because I was not expecting it to end there. I knew I was towards the end and I knew that things were going to be left undone because that's how other Pearson books have been, especially the Readng Chronicles. They like she ties it up to a point, but then there's enough that is left. But one, I thought that she left more than normal, kind of unbound, and then the way she ended it, I don't know how I feel about it because it's just so different. Anyways, yeah, that was that book and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars and I think you should go get it from your library or your local bookstore, because it was just a good time. And read her other books because they're also a good time. Now, that is all the books that I read for October. I've already been reading a bunch in November and I'm really excited to share. I almost was going to just combine the 2 months, but I wanted to separate them just because. And then this is my PSA. So if you don't like politics or you're like, bleh, off, just go. Have a great night. Good to see ya. However, I do hope you stay because there is this recent trend that is happening on the internet that says books should not be political. And I just want to say, to cement it in history on my digital footprint forever, that books are political. You personally can choose to not think that they are, but they are. And I think there is so much that happens with literature, and there is a reason that books get banned, and there's a reason that books get burned, and that's not great. And I think there is so much to be learned by the experiences of others through literature, both fiction and nonfiction, and so that's why I'm kind of changing my stance on nonfiction. I just do not understand when people say that books are not political. And that is not who I am. That is not the type of platform I want to have. And if that loses me people, that's okay. Because I care so deeply for those who are around me and my neighbors deeply. And I think that I have been called to be a voice for the voiceless and to sit at tables where others might not be able to sit. And to love people and love them well, and that means also pressing into my civic duty. And that's all I'm really going to say at this point, I think, because I also have a lot of raw emotions right now, and I'm excited to educate myself more and to understand more. And if you have any recommendations about great resources, I would love that. So please drop that. And no matter where you land on the political spectrum, I do not tolerate hate. So, anyways, if you skip the political talk, no problem. I do recommend you actually watching it because I think it's going to really advocate for who I am as a YouTuber, as a person, and I think it'll help call anyone who shouldn't be here. And that's okay. I don't think that you are a horrible person. I just think that some of my views might be different than yours. And if you want to stay and hear from someone different, I would love to have you. So I hope you have a wonderful day. and I hope I see you on the next video when it gets posted, because right now there's a lot of feelings and a lot going on in the world, and posting weekly is just not the highest on my priority, but it's still my goal. So I will see you when I see you, and I hope you have a great week.